Welcome to the Eltropy Exchange podcast, where leaders of community financial institutions connect, learn, and stay ahead. In each episode, we sit down with industry executives, innovators, and experts for candid conversations about the challenges and opportunities shaping CFIs today. At Eltropy, we believe conversations matter. Let's dive in.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Welcome back to the Eltropy Exchange. My name is Mike Pupil, Vice President at Eltropy, and I am joined today by a special guest, Adrienne Cabal. Adrienne, thank you so much for joining us today. Before I read your introduction, I just wanted to say a heartfelt thank you. I hope that our connection on the net stays pretty good because we have a fun conversation planned today. So good morning to you.
Awesome. Well, thank you for having me. I appreciate it. I'm looking forward to the conversation.
Awesome. Well, for those listening, watching, Adrienne comes to us as the Senior Vice President of the Digital Delivery at FAIRWINDS Credit Union. In this role, she leads FAIRWINDS' enterprise-wide digital strategy, enhancing digital channels and remote service capabilities to deliver a seamless and scalable member experience. Her leadership spans new technology implementations, product design and optimization, project management, and training. Most recently, she served as the Vice President of Digital Sales and Service. She's a University of Central Florida alum, beginning her career as an English teacher in Orlando, which we're going to touch on a little bit later, and a FAIRWINDS crew member for more than 2 decades. Adrienne continues to share her passion for education by teaching financial literacy classes through organizations like Habitat for Humanity. In her spare time, she enjoys exercising, creating new recipes, which I'm going to probably tap into you for. I definitely want one, and spending quality time with her teenage kids. So welcome to the podcast again. I hope that introduction does you justice. I somehow think it does not because we've had a couple of conversations, and I'm super excited for this conversation today.
Thank you. I forgot I mentioned that about recipes, so that's
Well,
fun.
you get a little time to think about one that you're gonna share with the team.
Got it.
I normally start every single podcast the same way, and I would love to continue that tradition. I would love for you to take us a little bit back in time and start with the question of how you got started in the credit union industry and how you got to your role here today.
Yeah, absolutely. So I actually started at a credit union back home in Tampa, and I was working there. For some reason, they let me work there on the summer when I wasn't even 18 yet. I'm pretty sure that that's not a thing anymore. But I worked for, obviously a couple months over the summer. I did things like work the switchboard, which wasn't so much my cup of tea, and we don't even have switchboards anymore. And then they did let me kind of work the teller line for a little while. And when I came up here to go to school at UCF, I was looking for obviously just a side job like most college students do. And all FAIRWINDS had to offer was an internship at the time. And the internship was in back office. So I was like, I'll take it. And then I just kind of kept convincing them every time the internship would expire that they should keep me back on, for some reason, and ended up working out for me because I was there all 2.5 years while I was in school.
I love it. I love it. Well, that started your path, and a very different path from the traditional credit union side of things, which I actually don't know if there's even a traditional path. But you started off as an English teacher. To walk us through that experience, I think that is a very difficult role. I certainly could not do that. So, what were the ages that you were teaching? Tell us what your experience was.
Yes.
You're ultimately
Oh,
not a
that was
teacher today.
fun. I was very young at the time, so I graduated school young, and that was what I went to school for. So it's the primary reason I left FAIRWINDS, back in 2002 was, okay, so I've gone to school for secondary English education. I had an inkling that I was not set on that career path when I did my senior internship, but it was one of those things where it's like, oh, you invested all of this time in school, so maybe it'll be better when you have your own classroom and kind of go out there and try it out. And I did. I had middle school, so it was primarily 8th grade, and I taught reading and English to those 8th graders. But I will tell you the truth, I lasted a year. And before I realized that this just wasn't going to be my long-term thing.
Right. Well, I'm going back to when I was around in that time. I probably would have been one of those students that you would have absolutely thrown out of the class at some point, but I probably
There
would
are
have tried
definitely students' names that I still remember to this day.
to.
And, it's funny, then when you start having kids later, you remember the names and you're like, oh, we can't name them that. That sticks with you for a long time.
I feel like that's a relatable experience that a lot of people have, where some names just get vetoed because of past experiences that are in there. Very interesting. Well, you to pivot back into the credit union world. I think that the experience that you had in terms of teaching, because one of your passions is obviously training and a little bit of the mentorship. Before we kind of dive into the next piece, I do want to take a little bit of a sidetrack because there was a reason why I brought this up, because that passion of training, mentorship, etc., it is so pivotal. It has been pivotal throughout, I think, all of human history. It will continue to be pivotal as we continue. Right from the early days of men, it was, singing around campfires, I think is how we had tribal knowledge, up to more formalized, kind of training that we have today that I think we invest in. You're probably a great example of a formalized training that you now employ at the credit union. Talk to us a little bit about some of the experience that you pulled from there and how you see it resonating within the group that you have today.
Sure. So I actually came back to Fairwinds. It was in 2005, and it was again meant to be kind of like a temporary thing. It was like, okay, I need to figure out now what I want to do with my life, and let me just go back to what I know. And it was never meant to be, again, like I'm going to stay at Fairwinds for forever. But here's where I got lucky, and I think it's everything happens for a reason. Shortly after coming back to Fairwinds, there was a position opened up in our training department where they needed somebody to be training all of the new hire classes specifically. So your role is obviously to be that first impression for them, set them at ease, help them get connected to our vision and purpose, and then ultimately, obviously, set them up to be, great tellers. So that was perfect for me. That role was a good alignment of the schooling I'd had and the background that I had had, obviously, with Fairwinds. But it didn't mean that it was all smooth sailing because, again, there was still that piece where my previous experience had all been mostly back office, and here I am training tellers, right? So there were things I was training that I still had never done myself. And that was nerve-wracking, but I just tried to lean into the things that I felt confident about, or even to just kind of oversell it, because just because someone is an expert in their field, whether it's finance or something else, doesn't mean that they can teach it to somebody else. So I just tried to focus on those things that I knew I could bring to the table instead of the things that I needed to learn still.
Yeah, right on. I think that for sure there are definitely, two different types of teachers that are out there, right? The teachers that teach based on personal experience, and those that teach based on process and, kind of reasoning and pieces like that. And I think that there are pros and cons to both. I think that there are advantages, disadvantages. Should definitely not stop someone from leaning into it, like you say, and draw on experience that may not necessarily be that exact point, but I think we all, whether you've done, member facing or public facing roles before, you can imagine that there's probably some universal, kind of rules of engagement, right? Like eye contact, a smile, like pleasant
Hmm.
language, a please and a thank you never hurt anybody,
Right.
right? And so things
Yeah.
like that we can teach ourselves in terms of best practices. And I've got a real soft spot to that. Early in my career, I was one of those traveling tellers going from branch to branch, kind of plugging in gaps while I was going to school at the same time. And I can think back to those
Hmm.
days that when you were in a bad mood, sometimes it was hard to put a smile on your face, but you are that
Yeah.
first point of contact. Yeah.
Right. You're always on stage in some way. And I didn't stay in training for the whole rest of my career. I went to other areas. I managed our IRA department for a little while. I worked in operations for a long time, but some of those same skill sets I was able to transfer over to be successful in some other roles. So, for example, in operations, we were the branch's primary support system, and we wrote procedures, all their operating procedures. So you as a teacher, you know how to take a complex topic and break it down into simplicity and bite-sized pieces and explain it in a way that anybody could understand. And that was a skill that became helpful there. And then I think another piece of that is I wasn't always a manager, but once I became a manager of people, teachers have some skill sets that they can bring to the table because developing people is also just teaching them. Every single opportunity that arises and is an opportunity to teach someone and to help them grow and to learn. So you learn to have those tough conversations because it ultimately helps them get better, and you don't shy away from it because you know that it's for their good, and they're learning along the way, so they're going to make mistakes. I think it's all of those types of things. And then, over time, to be successful, taking an idea and pitching it to upper management, putting together a succinct proposal that's convincing and helps the business understand why we need to take a different direction. Those are all skills that you learn because as a teacher, again, you're selling yourself when you're up there. So those are some ways that I've used it.
Yeah, I mean, those are, I mean, talk about a sound bite and something that will likely clip to replay. AD, I think you're going down the right path. In fact, you've mentioned a couple of times, I never thought it was going to be a permanent job. It was more of like a temporary thing. Temporary has
Yeah.
maybe keep saying that so that you have another 20 years at Fairwinds. I'm sure they would love to keep you on for that
Yeah.
that
Fingers
amount of time.
crossed.
Yeah, well, the role that you're in now is also a new role for the credit union,
Hmm.
right? SVP of digital delivery.
Right.
And that is kind of looking at, prioritizing digital growth and having that 3 to 5 year program. Maybe talk to us a little bit about what that role entails and certainly what that 3 to 5 year vision is for the digital channels and the projects that you're leading at Fairwinds.
Yeah. So this is a new role to Fairwinds in general, not just to me. And so it's taking some shape over time. The role's intent is kind of what you mentioned at the beginning in the intro. It's to ensure that across the entire organization, every journey that a member takes digitally is seamless and that we can deliver on our brand and our mission. That's very broad. And in a sense, though, there's a blessing in some uncharted waters. I haven't had somebody walk this role before me to compare it to. And I kind of like that space, to be honest with you, because there's only one way to go, but up as you're kind of building something. So that's kind of exciting for me. All that to say, I can see in the next 3 years that we continue to figure out how we can take the secret sauce of what makes a branch and in-person interactions successful and prove that we can replicate that in a digital space. And I absolutely believe that we can. I believe we can have just as deep of relationships and just as much personal connection, but it's going to take us really studying what has made our branches so successful and then envisioning what's the best way to do that in a digital way and work
I love
backwards
it.
from there.
I love it. I mean, effectively, what you're saying is within the next 3 to 5 years, you're going to have a bigger online channel than you are brick and mortar. I mean, that is
Yes.
an aggressive
Hmm.
stance. Sorry, go ahead.
And we're already starting to do that. I mean, this was an exciting, I think it was maybe last month or 2 months ago, as we've charted new membership coming in. It was the first time ever that our digital new membership growth exceeded or crossed over the line of what all of our branches were bringing in new membership growth as well. So we're trending in the right direction there. And it's
That's
not just
huge.
like digital new members coming in. We have to think about members may have joined who have been members for years, but they don't stay here. People move, right? And when you look at our membership across the nation, we already had members across the nation. We're just expanding that and amplifying the message.
Yeah, I think that is a colossal, pivot where I guess this is for the first time that online membership is outpacing the traditional brick and mortar. How, how do you merge, I guess, the human touch or the natural, kind of empathetic side that credit unions normally have, like those type of relationships with their members? How are you replicating that in the digital experience for those that are, looking at amplifying digital experience? Because that is one of the major topics at every single conference that I've been to throughout the entire
Mhm.
year. What you're talking about seems to be the path that everybody wants to get to. You're actually doing it. And so how do you merge that human touch with the digital experience?
Talk about two specific things. This is just kind of like the tip of the iceberg here of some shifts we've made over the last 12 months that are starting to pay off. One is believing that when your digital new members walk in the door, just because they joined you digitally doesn't mean that they don't want to hear from a human. And that was always the concept before is they start digital, so then carry them through all the way digital. And what we're finding is more success in blending the two together. And the amount of shock and awe that happens from a simple phone call on day one or even on the day of membership is like, wow, what do you mean that there's a person actually reaching out to me? And that has made a really big difference. But our mindset shift has been in the digital space, control it, right? Like if you own it all the way through. So I don't know what maybe some of the other credit unions are doing, but what we were doing is we had our onboarding kind of segmented out to the branches and some in digital. We kind of just took all those new members that were coming in and we split them up and we had different people calling. The beauty of centralizing and owning all of that is you get to hear the feedback in its in all of its volume, right? So if I have one member who tells a crew member, hey, this experience in your application was not the greatest, or hey, once I got in, I wasn't able to move money very well, and I'm struggling with figuring out how to transfer funds in. If I hear that one time, I'm going to think that it's just a one-off complaint. But if I centralize that now and I'm hearing it 5 times a day, and I also am looking at my surveys and I see that that's what people are commenting about, or I'm analyzing what people are searching on our website. All of those things combined together kind of piece together a story of the areas where you need to focus and improve to retain those new members. They are the most vulnerable in that first kind of like 60 days, that time frame. So think of them as being, yes, you got them in the door, but they're in an incubator right now, and they will be very forgiving to you of less than perfect digital experiences after the foundation is built, but not at the beginning. And don't try to sell to them hardcore when they just got in the door. Make sure that everything is set up properly for them, that you're earning that trust and respect. And so those have been some principles that we've put into place a lot over these last 12 months.
I really love that approach. And I'm trying to, draw on personal experience of, outside experiences that I've had. So I think very often too, when we walk into a store, right? And let's say I'm buying a jacket, and the first thing that happens, right, is that when that store greeter comes up to me and is aggressive right from the beginning, there's almost like that pushback of like, stop it. So like to your point, the first experience with a member coming through the door, that first interaction needs to be very well scripted without being overbearing or too aggressive, where it's like, stop, I'm just looking, leave me alone, to
Right.
you are going to entice me to have a conversation with you because the question or the interaction seems a little bit more friendly, less salesy, but more inviting to, and then I'm probably more apt of, oh, I need a jacket because I'm going to a conference, and then they'll correctly direct me to the right part of the store that I'll go and take a look at, like what it is that I'm looking for. But I'll probably be hesitant if you come across, was that designed on purpose, or was that just natural intuition of what it is, or maybe drawing on your own experiences of how you want to be treated, and this is how we're going to do it with the members? I think it's a very
A
interesting
little bit
path
of
to be part
both.
of.
I
Yeah.
went to financial brand conference and kind of was piecing together and just talking to some other people and seeing what they were communicating and about. And I just saw like time and time again is earn trust. And that just makes sense from like a human nature perspective. I'm one of those people too. I mean, same thing. Like if I can sense that someone is trying to be friendly only for the sake of what they can get out of me or, or try to sell me, then I have my guard up and I'm not interested. So
Yeah.
you're just kind of starting with those basic foundations. And then it's like the treat others how you want to be treated type of mentality.
Yeah, it's very, very fascinating. Well, shout out to that conference. The name of the conference again?
The Financial Brand Forum.
Financial Brand Forum. So great job to them. We'll put the link onto there in case there's others that are looking at, trying to take a peek at that. I love it if that's where you got the idea from it. I find the organization so incredibly interesting. And this is why I was so grateful for you saying yes. There was another angle that you guys are taking in terms of that word trust, right? The trust signal that you guys have, where you're looking at debt-free banking and financial freedom,
Hmm.
which is kind of the opposite of most financial institutions who make a lot of their revenue based on debt.
Hmm.
But Fairwinds is taking a complete opposite approach. Before I continue to talk, I'd love to take a pause.
Hmm.
Edie, what would you say to that? Can you give us a little bit more details or context in terms of what I'm alluding to?
Yes, I could talk about that one all day because it's infused into our entire culture here is you'll find no shortage of financial institutions wanting to profit off of your misfortune or living beyond your means. And that keeps you captive in the long run, and you're never going to achieve financial freedom or be able to, leave a legacy for your family or live generously the way that you want to. And so we have over the last several years really tried to flip that on its head. And we do want to be that financial institution that doesn't want you to have debt. We want you to be financially free. And our crew, it starts really with our crew too. So and we call our employees crew members, and that's why I keep using that word. But from the moment that they join, we want to know about their financial health as well, because we believe that they can't counsel and advise our members if they're not living it too. So we give them all of the tools that they need in order to live debt free. And we take the taboo away from talking about personal finances. In every single one of our team huddles, in our meetings, there is a financial freedom portion of that meeting where we talk about our personal stories. And we get real with each other and share what's working, our triumphs, the things that are hard for us. And it really starts there. You're opening up that conversation. And then I think that extends to our members.
I mean, I don't know of any other organization that is tackling it this way. The topic of finances is a very personal one, and sometimes is what
Hmm.
prevents things like, communication from happening, because there's either embarrassment, there's, a number of different
Hmm.
emotions that are very rarely very excited ones, unless you have a ton of money in the bank. Then it's then you have
Yes, right?
some happy to talk about that. But I think the whole point of this is to turn people from debt into a positive, net worth, or trying to finance things on the positive side instead of debt.
Yeah.
What was this first, kind of reaction from the staff? Like, how open was everybody to start talking about their finances? Like, I could see how it could be something a
Yeah.
little tough to break through.
It's taken a long time, right? You don't turn a cruise ship around in a matter of seconds. So it really just took repetition. And when people start to open up and you hear maybe your friend next to you who hasn't always done things perfectly, and you can relate to that, it starts to, naturally take away the shame surrounding maybe mistakes that you have made in your past. And we do emphasize telling our stories all the time, but it's not just that. We also reward our crew members for recommending products that are in alignment with that. And so, kind of backing up for just a second, first and foremost, we want to counsel people how to not have debt in the first place. But if it's an absolute necessity, for example, on your auto loan, we give our best rates to members for shorter term auto loans, because if you're going to get yourself into, a situation of debt, we want to help you get out of it as quickly as possible. So you'll find what we call like our financial freedom products are our shorter term auto loans, our 15-year mortgages, things of that nature. And then we incent our crew on helping members to get into those products instead of longer term. So those are some different ways too that I think it's like, okay, I can see how this benefits the member and I can see how it benefits me.
Yeah, I love it. And I think, and for those that don't know, Adi, you were at our Wyoming Leadership Conference a couple of months back in Wyoming. You actually talked a little bit about this and kind of the Ramsey Solution partnership that you have that
Hmm.
plays that key part in the conversations that you have. I know that you could talk about this all day because I think that this is a passion of yours for sure. But
Hmm.
can you expand a little bit on that in terms of, how that helps accelerate, member acquisition, how that helps them accelerate the different products that they have, or even, amplify the relationship that you have with the members? Because I think the key to it is, like you said, it's not instant. It takes time, right? But it is that approach.
Yes. So we've had a partnership now with Ramsey Solutions since September of 2024 and just renewed that partnership recently. There's so much alignment between our two organizations. Ramsey Solutions, which is made up of, multiple different channels and personalities and things like that, they have been teaching their baby steps for a really long time. And the baby steps include making sure you've got money set aside first and foremost for emergencies. And then from there, beginning to chip away at your debt besides your home. And there's this very prescriptive, set of steps that you take to work
Right.
toward financial freedom. And we have had for a long time our money milestones, which is a very similar progression and steps. So it really was the perfect marriage coming together to be able to amplify that message some more and for us to be able to kind of fulfill that promise to our members to help them live financially free. Now they have even more resources and tools. And we find that the fans of Ramsey, they come to us for a variety of motivations. Some of them are motivated because they've hit rock bottom and they're working their way out of debt, and this resonates deeply. They're very committed to doing whatever they need to do to reach financial freedom, and that is a great place for us to pick up, right? It's a great seed that has been planted, and then we're helping them with the actual banking and financial tools to carry out and live that out. So it's been great.
I'm so incredibly impressed with it and so grateful that you guys are going down this path. One of the things that I've done, and if anybody has ever seen me at a conference to speak, you know that I kind of take a swing at the payday lenders that are out there. And you mentioned it before. We do have debt products, but we do debt
Hmm.
products that would benefit the member. And so I see
Hmm.
that entire side of the business as being incredibly predatory. It traps people in kind of a whirlpool that is incredibly difficult to get out because the math in those products, they just don't make financial sense. Like that, I don't care what anybody says. So they're meant to trap people. Whereas everything that you guys are doing, not just the digital experience to make things a lot easier for individuals, but the Ramsey Solution partnership in terms of helping people get to that financial freedom, and it starts at home before it goes member facing, I think is a great approach to trying to do something different in order to get a different result in the industry. I
Yeah, I
applaud.
completely agree. There's it, and what I'm starting to realize is that financial health, it needs a holistic approach. So think about like the medical field, and you have people who are willing to prescribe you something to mask some symptoms, but who's really helping you get to the root cause of some of your financial issues or some of your health issues. It's the same way in finance, and it takes really a holistic approach. The people's money habits begin from a very young age, right? Like it's some of it's the personality based, and some of it their behavior with their finances is really emotional and it's deeply rooted to how their upbringing was. And us as a financial institution, we can't unwind all of that, in the few interactions that we have with people. So, but what we can do is point them toward the resources that they need to start thinking differently, shifting their mindset about money and understanding where maybe their motivations are coming from. Because if they don't address those root causes, we're only going to be able to help them to a certain extent. And that's why you'll see us take a more, a very specific stance because hey, look, like we believe you can do it. No one's going to come to rescue your financial situation, but we can show you how you can do it. We can show you how you can be your own hero there. So let us help you walk that path and make some different choices maybe than what you've made before.
So true. Nobody's come to save you. You are the hero in your own
Hmm.
story. So, gear up and let's go. I
Yeah.
love Adi, you mentioned something earlier, and I would love to pivot because I would love your opinion in this. I mean, you mentioned when you started to manage people for the first time. Well, in this new
Hmm.
role that you've accepted, your team also significantly grew pretty large from, I think you were managing 9 to now 65 employees.
Yes.
Am I in the
Hmm.
ballpark here, or did it change, or did you
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
hire, a
We
hundred?
we ga- I think we gained maybe like two more since then, but yeah, you're in the ballpark.
So, what's the biggest lesson that you've learned in, going from 9 to 6? I mean, that is scaling quickly. And that in and of itself is a challenge because you can't do it the same way. So what are some of the lessons
Hmm.
learned for those executives that are, taking on new challenges or all of a sudden now managing for the first time or bigger teams for the first time? What were the
Hmm.
trials and tribulations that you went through and some of the key success stories that you can share with us?
Okay, like two of them really come to mind. One is I can't control everything the way that I could control it before. I'm a bit of a perfectionist, and so I prided myself on knowing what was going on, right? So even if I stepped into a new area, I tried to become the expert of it because I always wanted to be able to have the answer if somebody asked me. So if an executive came to me and said, what's going on with XYZ? I wanted to have the answer. I wanted to know. And I've had to shift from that mentality to trusting the managers that I have in place and empowering them to carry things out, and to know and run the business more on the day to day. That's really hard for me. So that's one. And then I think the other part of it is I'm an introvert by nature. And so it doesn't mean that I love being social, but I have a limited, energy capacity for it. And I've had to really protect in that way so I can show up better for people. So I have to say no. I have to say when I need undistracted time, and advocate for myself in that way so that I can be effective. I'm realizing in this role that the shift really is my team is the other people on management team with me. And it doesn't mean that I don't care and support as much for my team, but I need to start making that shift as well. Is my peers are also now on management team and we're solving problems for the organization. I'm not just solving problems for my area. So I need to be asking myself, when I bring solutions to the table, does this benefit the entire organization?
You're putting it in a way that I wish I had had this conversation earlier in my career. The moment that you get into, management, you I don't want to say you play for two teams, but there's almost two different positions that you play. There's the management team, and then there's the team that you ultimately help lead, right? And those conversations are different, and there's different expectations. There's different, kind of activities or responsibilities that you have, and so threading that needle to manage both, I think is where you were going, and I think that is the highlight, right? Is to understand that. Oh no, hold on a second. There are two teams that you're actually playing
Hmm.
for or playing with, and helping to contribute on both sides, and they're not one and the same.
Hmm.
I don't know. Was there any piece of feedback that you wish you had gotten sooner in your career that you would say, "Oh, if I could go back and tell myself this 10 years ago, this is what I'd say."
Mm. Oh my goodness, there's so many things.
Right?
Um, because I'm still telling myself some of them. I mean, when I tell you that I need to trust and empower my team and let go sometimes, I still have to tell myself that very regularly. Um, and to solicit feedback and input, like don't be afraid of people challenging you because your highest performers are going to challenge you. You want them to. When they go silent, that usually means that there's a problem. Um, and just because people do challenge you doesn't mean that you have a blemish. It just means that they have a different opinion than you. That's one that I've had to, really think hard about and to stay on top of.
Totally agree. I think many of us have probably the same, kind of dispositions, right? The first time that we get into leadership, and not the first time, but anytime that we're in leadership, and it's a scalable number where you can control more variables, I think we all, try to control as many variables as you can.
Hmm.
In Canada, sometimes we call it snow plowing for our team, right? You kind of clear the way so that you do a little bit
Yes.
more than you should, and that way, you're in control of those things. Whereas
Hmm.
handing it over once you get to a certain size, or there's different initiatives, you kind of have to hand the
Hmm.
keys over and let that
Yeah.
individual kind of snowplow for the team that they're leading, and you move on to
Right.
bigger initiatives.
Yeah,
I
because I
totally see.
think like learning, like being able to figure out what's the mission or the path forward, if you're
Right.
used to being the doer and figuring it out as you go, the challenge now is how do I set the vision and strategy for my team and give them clear direction and then let them carry it forward from there.
Yeah, I think that that is one of the hardest things as a leader to do is to do that and trust in it. And yeah, it's kind of like standing at the edge of a, at the edge of I guess a cliff. I don't want to make it that dramatic, but that feeling that you get of, oh my God, is it going to happen? Well, looking at 2026, what's the biggest, challenge that you see for the credit union, or any pitfalls that you're, concerned about coming into the new year? Because we're only a couple of months out from it. We're less than 60 days now until 2026, which is insane that I'm saying out loud. But what are you seeing
Hmm.
as some of the challenges coming up for 2026?
Ooh, I mean, for us, I think it's going to be trying to keep up with that accelerated pace of innovation that's happening. Credit unions, I think that's something that's going to be a challenge for all of us there. Is the banks obviously have the deep pockets and they have, the resources to kind of even pull together. Think of things like Zelle, right? That changed the game when it came to payments and interchange revenue and all of those things. And they still make money off of it, whereas we're paying for those types of products and solutions. And there's many more things like that where we need to be able to keep up. Um, and so for us, I think the challenge is going to be making sure we make smart investments, make investments in the technology that matters the most and is going to move the needle. You have tons of options when it comes to AI in particular, and that's going to keep changing the game. And so where do we invest in AI solutions that are going to make a big impact, not just to implement AI for AI's sake? So those are some things that are going to be top of mind here, is what are going to be those newest kind of technological disruptors that come up, in this next year that change the game.
I love it. If you could sit down with every credit union CEO, what's one hard truth that you'd share, about growth or member engagement today, knowing that that is your new, kind of passion, and the path that you are forging forward with Fairwinds?
Hmm. I think is don't lose focus on why, what you're doing and who you're really doing it for. And, there's just because we're implementing new technology and following innovation and all of those things, again, it's like don't lose track of that human connection, because that's really what makes credit unions different. If you look at fintechs, right, and it's easy to want to chase what fintechs are doing because they're gaining market share in different and unique ways, but we still have things that they don't have. And if we try to make ourselves look too much like them, we're going to lose that one core differentiator, which is being really their relationship banker. They came to us for a reason. If people come to a community bank or they come to the credit union, even when you look at small businesses, they continue to choose who their financial institution is by who their relationship manager is. Those are things that we can do better than any of these fintechs out there can. Would you rather chase all of these new members who aren't still going to be here, or all these new customers who aren't going to be here again in 5 years because they're single product? They're not bringing you your family. They're not bringing you their kids' accounts. They aren't bringing you their direct deposit. We want to chase that. We want to be relationship and legacy bankers. So don't lose sight of that, trying to be too much like them.
The insight to that is, I think a lot of people need to replay that and just listen to it a second time, because ultimately what you guys are selling is relationships, and you happen to provide banking services, right?
Hmm.
Um, it reminds me of a story of GoPro. And back in 2011, was it, when they first went public? I think they were valued at around $11 billion, and within 3 years, they were less than a billion. They lost 98% of their value because GoPro started chasing things that didn't kind of fit what GoPro was. GoPro was an adrenaline junkies tool to capture what they're doing while they're doing it. They weren't selling,
Hmm.
media. What they were selling was like that lifestyle of like the extreme sports and being able to capture like crazy stuff, on a camera.
Hmm.
And they lost their way, and that's why they busted. Anybody that's interested in doing that, you could do the research on the case study on a business side to it, but it goes exactly to what it is you're talking about. If you start chasing the bells and whistles, the things that don't really align with the vision of who you are as an organization, it'll lead to failure. Your comment leaves me with wild confidence that you are going to hit that target that you're looking for in
Thank
that 3 to
you.
5 years. I think Fair Winds, we are going to be seeing that name in the industry often, where you guys are going to be getting recognition for some of the things that you guys are doing that is not conventional, but absolutely makes sense to the vision of what credit unions are. It is an absolute honor to have you on board, Adi, to talk about this. And the last question that I'm going to ask you is, we got to see each other for the first time in Wyoming. I know that you do selectively choose a couple of conferences. We mentioned the other one before. I know we're coming towards the end of the year, so there probably is less travel for you in the next 60 days. But is there anything that you've already set up for 2026 in case people watch this and they want to come up to you and chat with you?
Oh, I'll probably look at the Financial Brand Conference again next year. And, I won't let the cat out of the bag necessarily of who else we're kind of looking at in terms of like digital banking providers, but certainly we'll probably be at a conference for
Where
some
their
digital
shows?
banking providers next year.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right on. Well, I hope we get to see each other at the leadership conference again, or at any of the other events that we're at. I
And
know
I
that.
think I lost you right there at the end, Michael. Oh, there
Did
you
you?
are.
There we go.
Yes.
Then come on, hold up Marriott Internet for just a couple more minutes. But I hope we get to run into each other again. Wyoming was the first time that we got to see each other face to face, but it's always a very interesting conversation. I'm wildly excited to follow this progress. And hopefully, what we can do is towards the end of 2026, I would love to have a recap episode of saying, all right, now 12 months later, how did you guys
Yeah.
do? What have you guys been up to, lately? Because you guys are on a very interesting journey. So not to put you on the spot, Adi, but I would love to do it, and we'll see if it
Yeah,
fits with things.
absolutely. I would love that. And then for anyone else who maybe is listening to, we don't have to wait for a conference to connect. So I'm always looking to talk to other people who are trying to accomplish some of the same things and just bounce ideas off each other. So please reach out.
Amazing. We're going to post your LinkedIn link maybe on
Awesome.
this episode. That way they can connect with you and you can hopefully reach out and hopefully do it. And that is the whole point, by the way, of the Eltropy Exchange. That is exactly what we want to do. So a big thank you for
Awesome.
being so generous with your time with that. I feel like I've thanked you about 50 times at this point, Adi. So I'm gonna wrap up. I'm gonna let you get back to it. I want to thank you for donating some time with us. And thank you to the listeners. We will be back soon with the next Eltropy Exchange. It was a pleasure. Stay connected, stay empowered. And thank you, Adi, again.
Awesome. Thank you guys. Talk to you later.
Thanks for listening to this episode of the Eltropy Exchange podcast. For more insights and resources, visit us at eltropy.com. We'll see you next time.